Dear Brian Holdsworth, happy Thursday. My name is Ptony, your friendly Catholic vlogger. This is a response to the video you published called Why Modern Art is So Bad, published on the 29th of September. I watched your video many times because it intrigued me. Also, I disagreed with part of it. That's why I'm responding. I'm trying to boil down your video to just two major points that you made to provide context for this video. First point is, art is more than self-expressionism. Here. Totally agree with that. Right on. And I loved how you argued for that. Second point, good art is judged based on how much it inspires. That, of course, prompts a question, what makes art inspirational? And that's tricky. Based on the examples of your video, my takeaway was that the major factor that makes one piece of art inspirational and another not is that the inspirational piece of art is something that demonstrates a great deal of skill. I draw that conclusion most especially based on your example of looking at a piece of art and asking ourselves a question, well, why is this here? I mean, I could have done this. I glean from that a huge part of judging art, in your opinion, stems from the artist's ability. Has he done something that other humans can't? What is his technical prowess? And I disagree with that standard, hence this video. I want to tell the story of this lovely gentleman named Van Megeeren. Van Megeeren is from the early 1900s. He lived through World War II, and there are Nazis in this story. Growing up, he went to art school, and he was very, very talented and got a lot of praise from professors and mentors and, you know, the people that teach in an art school. He just excelled at all of the art stuff and learned quickly and had a natural knack for things. So coming out of art school, he became a professional artist, and he had a little success, but not much. One exemplary quote, an art critic of the time in a review wrote about him, "He has every virtue except originality." Van Megeeren got angry that the art critics didn't like his work and said some very nasty things and lost a lot of friends. And then he decided to go into forging stuff. Specifically, he chose this artist named Vermeer, who's back from the 1600s, and decided to make paintings and pretend that they came from this guy Vermeer. And he pulled it off. Which was super exciting for the art world in general because they didn't know that these were fake Vermeers. All they knew is that all of a sudden there were all these Vermeers that were popping out into the art world that nobody had seen before. And this filled a hole in the hearts of a lot of art enthusiasts because Vermeer is a painter that doesn't have many paintings. He's really good, but there just aren't that many paintings from him. Eventually, though, Van Megeeren was found out. See, Van Megeeren sold his long-lost Vermeers to a variety of people. One of those people was a Nazi. So Van Megeeren got in a lot of trouble for that because he was selling, you know, like historical art to a Nazi, and that counted as treason and such. So Van Megeeren had to prove that, no, these aren't actually Vermeers, they're my own art, so it was fine for me to sell this to a Nazi. Very, very exciting stuff. Back to the main timeline. Van Megeeren had been found out. His paintings were not actually Vermeers, they were forgeries. So what happened to the value of all these paintings he had pretended were Vermeers? And suddenly everyone knew they were forgeries. They actually became more valuable, which is interesting. Van Megeeren became a celebrated figure because he had conned a Nazi. And, you know, that always wins brownie points. And what's more, Van Megeeren was celebrated for his ability to paint so much like Vermeer that people couldn't tell the difference. And what's more, Van Megeeren was able to develop a technique that made his paintings that were painted last week looked like they were painted from 300 years ago. I love this story because there's so much nuance, and I just love nuance. But my question is, does the theory that we should judge art based on how much it inspires, and by inspire, talking about technical prowess and skill level, does that adequately explain Van Megeeren's story? Like, look at his life. Van Megeeren started off being very highly praised in art school for his skill level and for his ability to learn new skills so quickly. But then when he goes professional, suddenly his skills aren't enough and the art critics aren't happy. And even as we look back, we're not impressed enough by his art in that time period to really talk about it anymore. But then Van Megeeren starts making things that look like they were made by another artist that is already celebrated, and suddenly his work is worth something. And then finally, when he's found out, all of the values of all of his works change suddenly, and he's celebrated for his groundbreaking skills as a forger. As an aside, is he actually celebrated as an artist, or is he celebrated as a forger? Does forgery count as a work of art? I don't know. Or is it its own discipline? Questions. I'm not satisfied with the skill theory, so I want to propose an alternate theory. And this will put us on equal footing, because then you have a theory that I can poke holes in, and I'll have a theory that you can poke holes in, and it'll be a great time. It'll be nice. So let's pretend for a second that the history of art is like a grand conversation that's been going on since art started, like thousands of years. And in this grand conversation of art, what are the works of art that we celebrate and that we remember and that we study and talk about? What works of art are those? What do they have in common? They all offer insight. Every work of art that's celebrated and that we remember and is a classic, considered a classic, they all offer insight. Just like comments in a regular conversation that offer insight are the comments that we remember and the comments that we call especially good comments. Is insight as vague of a term as inspiration? Perhaps, but two things that I want to draw out of the word insight is there's an element of novelty and there's an element of depth, or an element of truth or beauty, or something that resonates with what the conversation is about. There's an element of resonating. Art theories are hard. Oh, gosh. Obviously, this theory needs some work. I recognize that. But I like my theory of art because it explains some things that I haven't seen other theories explain. For example, Van Megeeren was a very skilled painter, but if it wasn't for his adventures in the world of forgery, we could very well have forgotten about it. Was that a lucky break? Maybe? It's interesting to compare Van Megeeren to loads of other artists that are very, very skilled, but haven't caught that lucky break and are simply forgotten. If we judge art fundamentally based on skill level, it's very difficult to explain why that happens. But as I see it, we remember Van Megeeren because he offered us insights into the world of forgery. And because that element of insight is there, his work has value. And how does this all apply to modern art? This video is getting too long. I'm not going to go there. The main point of this video is not so much talking about what modern art is good and what is not. I wanted to talk about fundamental judging criteria for art. And I did that. This is where I say goodbye, I guess. God bless and ciao. Well, that was fun. All right, so this is the first in a brand new type of video that I want to try experimenting with, response videos. You'll always be able to recognize when I'm making a response video because the title will be Dear So-and-so, and then, you can click on it. I think there's a lot of potential for this kind of video because I think that there should be a space on the internet for constructive dialogue about differing opinions. Normally when we think about differing opinions on the internet, I mean, words that jump into my mind are trolls and flame wars and hate and antagonism. Those are nice. I'm hoping that this response video doesn't come across like that at all. Especially because, well, I would be honored if any of my viewers went over and checked out Brian Holdsworth's channel. Brian makes great videos. I'm subscribed to him. I have notifications turned on for his channel. So of course I'm going to leave a link to his channel in general and to this particular video that I responded to down in the description box down below. You should check him out. He's great. Also, since this Dear So-and-so series is just starting off, give me some feedback. Let me know what you think of the idea and if this particular video worked or not. Yeah, that'd be great. There's a comment section down below. So there. All right, I'm gonna go. Bye.